The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution has to do with searches and seizures. In school, these rights are slightly hindered due to the safety for the public.
Academicians, juvenile law experts all agree that strip searches are traumatic events for children.
The rule should be that, that those searches should be limited to where you have issues of health and safety risks to students.
So, at least that really seems like it's against constitutional rights.
There's something dangerous, especially like a gun. Yeah. You shouldn't have to wait to get a warrant.
They should be able to search students' belongings and lockers if they have very probable cause, like multiple people telling them that there's probably something that's dangerous to the other students in their possession.
I feel like it's just the property of the students, so they kind of have a right to their privacy.
That they should have a warrant if they want to search a student.
Schools should have and could have taken seriously an accusation that Savannah perhaps provided ibuprofen at some unknown time and in an unknown location. But with that and without anything more, to force Savannah to take off her shirt and her pants and to rummage on or around her body just went beyond the pale. To think that the school officials could have conceivably just guessed that Savannah was possessing ibuprofen underneath her underpants was just unreasonable, and we don't allow guesswork to dictate searches underneath a 13-year-old girl's underpants.
The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution affects a student like me in many different ways. A student is much more likely to be searched in a public school than they are in the real world where a warrant is needed. Although schools do not need a warrant, administrators need what is called reasonable suspicion to search a student. Reasonable suspicion can come in many forms, whether it be hearsay, evidence, or tips from other staff members that a student could most likely endanger the student body. What's your definition of probable cause?
Having a justified reason to do it.
Probable cause, I think, would have to do with some sort of evidence involved.
See illegal acts or substances, or if you have been tipped off by a reliable source that is trustworthy, then you have the right to search.
It would just be shocking and a nightmare to parents around the country to think that this search can happen to their child.
Not 100% comfortable with my children being randomly searched or searched. I think there needs to be a lot of work to determine why, how, who, what, and when. I think if there was a very strict guideline and people always had the idea of safety first, then I guess it would be appropriate.
So, I think there is a value in trying to sort of model some of these core principles that we feel are very important in the way people live their lives as adults in this country within the school. And that would sort of argue for the schools at least following, if not to the letter, of what might be required of a police officer or a state institution in its relationships to the citizens, but at least sort of following the spirit of the those rules.
I'm for the idea that searches can be done more easily in a public area like school, especially given that there's so much so many kids are at potential risk, given the actions of just one or two kids that might be having problems or whatever. There have just unfortunately been too many situations at schools where one or two kids can cause too much trouble for the larger public.
When I was student teaching was when Columbine happened, and I have to admit that changed my impression of the world pretty drastically. When I worked in industry, they suspected they had a drug problem in one of the plants, and the general manager walked in on a Saturday with the drug sniffing dogs through the locker room, and because it was private property, they were allowed to do that. I'm not so sure I'm excited about that here. I think we should be looking at behavior to say, can we help you, versus can I arrest you?
So would you say that you agree with the fact that kids are more likely to be searched in school, or would you say that you would like it to be more like the real world where you need a warrant to be searched?
I think when it comes to something like a gun or a knife, we should err on the safety issue, which means I'm going to live without you having all your rights.
Controversial cases involving searching students are everywhere. Even in our own school, recently, administrators built up enough hearsay for them to have reasonable suspicion to search students, and in their search they found illegal substances and suspended multiple students.
My hand, oh, Messiah.